in the same way that it seems obvious to me that Bitcoin is a better foundation for building business based on being able to measure value correctly forever, I feel like Nostr might be similar in terms of like the cornerstone of a media business or any type of personal communication online, because of the fact that you can't be deleted.
I was hard into Nostr. I loved the concept initially. I leaned into it pretty heavily probably 12, 18 months ago. But when I actually sat back and thought about it, I realized that switching the majority of my content to Nostr meant that I was not reaching the people that I cared about. Like the people on Nostr, especially at that time, I think it's pretty much the same still, but especially at that time, were the hardcore Bitcoin people, the hardcore tech enthusiasts, or the people who already understood a lot of the messages I was trying to share. They already knew about the tools I was trying to talk about. They already knew about the need for personal privacy, self-sovereignty, because they knew about Nostr. Like, let's be honest, Nostr is like a niche within a niche within a niche. Yeah. So I realized like I could use Nostr, and for my own personal benefit, there are some good reasons to do that. But I was missing the vast majority of the people that I wanted to reach. So I committed to, I don't have time to do both platforms. Like I'm very time restricted. So I decided I'm actually going to focus on Twitter. And I got a lot of shit for that, because people understand and believe Nostr as a better platform for human freedom. And it is individually, but it also means that all the people who are on Twitter right now, who have no idea what Nostr is, who don't know how Bitcoin is a good tool for human freedom, who don't know anything about privacy tools, my voice missing, and I'm not trying to say that I'm like changing the world or anything, but my voice missing means that there are less people who are going to learn about these things if I was to switch all the way to Nostr. And I thought that was a bad thing. Now that does mean that I am having to sacrifice some to do that, because I really would not, I would not choose to be on Twitter. I hate social media as a general rule anyways, but I would personally prefer to be on Nostr. But I thought that my platform would best benefit other people if I was on Twitter. And I think that's something that has to be a personal decision for each person. Really briefly on Nostr, I think it's interesting. I think technologically, Nostr's in many ways a very poor platform for social media. It's a good fallback in very extreme cases, but a lot of what makes Nostr the protocol really useful actually makes it really bad for social media. And this is a side conversation. Maybe we can have another day, because I don't want to eat up the remainder of our time.
No, that's cool, Seth. I'm please continue. I'm very interested.
Yeah, I mean, the two of the main things you actually mentioned as somewhat scary things are you cannot delete posts. Technically, you can request deletion. There is a new a Nostr improvement proposal that came out 12 or 18 months ago where you can request deletion, but you're launching your data to a set of relays that you don't control. They can do what they want with it. And there is no native delete functionality. So you should expect that your data lives forever, which is, like you said, similar to social media, but instead of one central entity having that data, now probably multiple relay operators are still going to have that data, much less still be serving that data to your users. Another thing that's very problematic is the way that media works on Nostr. Essentially, you're going to be revealing a lot about yourself to anyone who posts media. Because if I make a post and I host the media on my own server, it would be trivial for me to surveil where are all these people coming from who are viewing this post and downloading this media. Now, some protections have been put in place in some Nostr clients, but there's a lot of risk in how media is served on the Nostr network, because again, it's not served by a trusted entity, which again, there are pros and cons to Twitter having control over what media is posted on their platform and what people can see. But it also means that I'm only trusting Twitter themselves with info about my network connection, my IP address, that sort of thing, when I view this media. Whereas in Nostr, I'm connecting to who knows what as the source for that. The third thing I'll mention as well is network privacy generally in Nostr is very poor. So when you think about how Nostr actually works, generally you're connecting to a set of relays, 5, 10 relays within the Nostr network. You're connecting to them directly. You're revealing to them who you are on Nostr. Now, obviously, that could be a NIM or something, but you're revealing to them your public key on Nostr. You're revealing to them information about everyone you follow, and you're revealing everything about your network to them as well. You're revealing your IP address directly to those relays. Now, some of that can be solved by using a VPN or using Tor, but that is another one of the downsides, is you're revealing a lot about yourself to a lot of relays where you maybe don't trust the operators themselves in the same way you might trust a Twitter or something like that.
I think what's caught my attention about Nostr the most is the yes, it's potentially an edge case. I like, Rogan mid-COVID with the biggest platform in the world on Spotify was having Peter McCulloch come on and talk about like, is this really a good idea, guys? So even in that highly contentious moment, the biggest guy on the, a centralized platform still didn't get deleted. But there are definitely cases of people being cancelled by social media companies.
For sure.
So at some point, you probably will come in the crosshairs. And in the same way that it seems obvious to me that Bitcoin is a better foundation for building business based on being able to measure value correctly forever, I feel like Nostr might be similar in terms of like the cornerstone of a media business or any type of personal communication online because of the fact that you can't be deleted. And what I'm always looking for is to learn from people. So you've already taught me some stuff. It's like, here's some things you should probably think about, Jake, that actually might mean you're not so bullish on Nostr. And that's already maybe a more sophisticated kind of user of it in a sense. And I wouldn't understand the information that my network shows to Nostr, if that makes sense. So that's just not an area I understand about. But to give you an example, I've been working just briefly with Fishcake, who's a developer building Nostr.build, which is the server I've been using and paying my sats to host media.
Yeah.
And what I would love is a better analytics feature on their platform where it's like, I want to be able to aggregate the data. It's like, how many views have I got? When did I get them? Calculate it over a 12-month period. And at this point, Nostr.build's not even sophisticated enough to do that. If you were using a YouTube, you could get demographics, location, all this like data. And what Fishcake pointed out is you just don't have that much data about a Nostr user in the same way that you'd have YouTube analytics. So, but maybe, and that was my previous view, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. Like, especially in the media hosting side of things, you can learn an immense amount of information about an individual user because you know the public key of that user. So you know anything that's public on their profile, their Nostr profile. You know the IP address of that user. So generally you'll know, again, depending on if they're using VPN or Tor, but most people are not, you're going to know roughly what city they live in, what country they live in, obviously. You could probably tell a lot from their Nostr profile, things about demographic. You're going to know what language they speak. You're going to know what time of day they're generally online. If you're seeing this user with this IP address is grabbing media from Nostr.build only between the hours of 8 and 5 Eastern, they're probably on the East Coast, even if they're using a VPN or Tor. There is a lot of data you can collect, again, because it's a central server where someone has to reach out from their machine and download something. So you could learn a lot. Now I think the good thing within the Nostr paradigm is there's not this ad monopoly. So there's not a lot of financial incentive to build out that sort of surveillance. That doesn't mean that it can't exist or that even that it doesn't exist right now, but that there's not as much financial incentive. And that is one of the very powerful things about Nostr is that because there's not an ad monopoly, a lot of the brokenness that exists on Twitter and other social media platforms has no financial incentive to exist, which is a real upside of Nostr.
Yeah, but then to also temper that, you take any half decent podcast that is selling adverts as sponsorship contracts, and you look at the revenue stats of that podcast, the vast majority of the revenue of the podcast will be from probably a fiat denominated sponsorship contract, not Zaps. People are sending not even like a fraction of a penny, right? It's not yet there, but it is a very, very cool concept.